How many of you are familiar with Java? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, and any programming language? Including C, Java, anything? Okay. Whatever stuff you just learned in the theory session, in the first session, is independent of programming language. We saw a demo from Bhaskar which implemented some web service in Java. So those who don't know Java don't have to worry. You can still do it in C. A little bit difficult, but if you are an expert in C, you can do it. And but better you learn Java sometime if you want to really work on some bigger project, because it's one of the most popular thing nowadays. And for Java, we have Netbeans and a lot of other IDEs like Eclipse, which makes your life easy and generates a lot of code automatically. You don't have to write and compile it manually. So the session is my demonstration is part of this. First, I will show you how to consume a web service generated from a different site and use for your usage. Then I'll go back to the REST. The theory part is covered by Mohan. I will show some small example of how a RESTful service can be generated, both from your business logic given by you and from databases. Most of the job what RESTful services do is exposing databases. For example, you want to post your Facebook data you want to expose your Facebook data so that people can write application and standalone client, and normally we access Facebook in a browser, but if some user want to create an application which runs on your Windows machine and they want to access the Facebook data from the server, Facebook guys is not going to give you the database details and connection and give you rows and columns identification so that you fetch data. They will expose your web service and you have to consume it to display data for human consumption. So I'll directly go to my first demo. Anybody has a Flickr account? It's a photo hosting service. You have one? Yeah, it's something like Picasa also. It has a photo hosting service. So a lot of people host a lot of pictures in Flickr. And today what I'm going to do is access some data from Flickr without visiting this website. This is flickr.com. You upload pictures, you share with your friends, you download pictures through this website. This website for human consumption. But fortunately, Flickr has some web service exposed that can be made available for machine consumption, and because it can be consumed by machines, you can translate it to for human consumption. Machine consumption data will look like something like XML, a lot of tags, which doesn't make sense for a user. Back at home, your parents don't want to see a URL of a picture, they want to see the picture itself. So it has to be rendered on the browser so that machine consumable data is consumed by the machine translated to human consumable format. That's most likely on a web page. So Flickr.com exposed a lot of web service on this page listed, www.flickr.com/services/API, and I picked one of the service and I wrote this piece of code. This looks like a simple HTML. You know, somebody knows HTML over here? Start tag, end tag starts with HTML, header, body, and HTML can be interesting with JavaScript inside it, but I have written some code over there. So we talked about REST services, and if you have noticed, REST services provide you data in either in XML or JSON, and there's a few other formats. What I'm doing is I'm getting data from Flickr.com. This is my REST URL. here I'm mentioning the format, that it should be JSON. JSON is not XML. XML, we have a lot of start tag and end tag like HTML. JSON compresses it. It doesn't use tags. It rather uses curly braces and semicolon notation like a hash map, object value pair combination. The full form of JSON is JavaScript object notation. Hope my internet works. Yes, it worked. So when I threw this URL to the browser, and I mentioned that the format output the browser should give me is JSON, Flickr data is not, all of the data is not public. So one of my colleagues created a key to identify that some user is using Flickr data. If they don't have any authentication, Flickr.com, then they finally end up serving a lot of requests which they don't even know how to track it. If you provide a particular key, Flickr.com knows that a particular person is requesting data. They can track how many data you are accessing per day. Right now they know that somebody from SNIST's college IP address accessed our data, so they don't worry about it. And my job was to get a particular group's photo. So I mentioned the group ID should be this. This is a group for, let me see, I don't remember what, probably it was NASA's photo gallery. So this is the data. This is the data which is returned by Flickr.com, and it looks like something like this. I will format this data for you to show it how it looked like. I go to the website. Oh, offline mode. I think my network is not connected. Let's wait for it. Okay. Good. JSON format. This is a website which formats the JSON data. Oh, no, I copied the URL. I copy the JSON data returned by Flickr.com. This doesn't look very good now. I'll remove the method part. Process. Now it looks good. So the return data type says it has a lot of photos, and over here this is a kind of array. You have read arrays in C, a collection of photos. So each curly brace under the square bracket is a data for photo. This is one photo. This does look like a photo, but this is the details about the photo. This is the location where Flickr.com stores its photographs. This is the first photo. The second photo, like I think there are 100 photos which are returned by the Flickr API. So if you notice, the difference between this and XML is this doesn't have any tags, so it saves a lot of space. The communication network bandwidth also it saves. So what Flickr did for me is not only return this data, it also returned a function. If you know, all the functions in C are starting with a name, then an opening bracket, then closes with a parenthesis again. So it returned a function and the data as its parameter, because it's between the parentheses. So how do I consume it? I got the data. So I wrote a simple HTML which calls this particular URL and gets the JavaScript function which has the Flickr data as parameter inside. And this is the source code I wrote. Now, writing script src in HTML is equivalent to replacing the data returned by the URL inline at this position. In this web page, I don't have any data, but I have the link to the source of the data, which at the runtime gets replaced over here, and the piece of code in here tries to render the photograph on the web page. And because my JSON data has a lot of photo information about a lot of photos, I do it in a loop. I do it in a for loop. What it does, it generates a random number between 1 and 100 and and gets the index, random index, and tries to render that photo. Now the fun part, we try to run it. Hopefully the internet is okay and it runs. The HTML, as usual, it will take the default browser to run on the system. It's a little white in my Linux system. I think it has. Great. This is what the HTML look like when I run in the browser. These are all the photos from the, I think it's Chandra X-ray laboratory of NASA, all the photos you see. You can inspect the source code over here. This is the exactly same source code I wrote there. There's no photos and no image link out there, but at the runtime, this particular URL fetch this data and it brings back this data to the browser and renders all these pictures. So this is an typical example how you use the web services exposed by the various websites and design your web page to render them. So in this case, I did not go to a Flickr website, downloaded a picture and stored the picture in the local hard drive and embedded it in the website. So this is what, if someday somebody adds a photo in the NASA's website, this will come up over here. Because as soon as the browser will send the request to the REST API, they will take the latest data, give back to my browser, and browser will render it. So this is the end of first part, where we consumed an external web services. Similarly, Facebook has a lot of data, a lot of web services exposed. This is a Facebook.com's API page. Here, for example, there are a lot of APIs which you can use. I take one of the public. For example, you want to know, let's take something responsible. This URL. I am not probably logged in. Okay, this is my Facebook picture, and what you basically did, you typed this URL in your browser and got the picture. So this gives you a feel of REST over here, because graph.facebook.com/myFacebookID, then it says that get the picture. So there is a universal resource locator for my picture, which is residing on Facebook server. However, the server doesn't necessarily stores the picture in the same location what we refer to. The server internally translates and finds from the nearest server. Maybe if I request from India, they have a web server somewhere in India, they will serve it from India. If I request from the United States of America, then they will send the picture from the... So this particular URL will change. But the access method remains same. If now you write a Java program which downloads all the pictures of your friends, so you can write a for loop and get your friend's ID first from the Facebook API, then use this particular URL to fetch the profile picture. Okay, let's go how to create a typical very small REST service. This is again Netbeans 6.9.1. I go to want to create a new picture, new project, essentially Java web project. I do next. I tell it REST demo 2. Next, this is where you define the web server. because this has to be deployed on a particular web server which will serve every request given from the client. I finish it. Now I have a new project. I go ahead and try to create a web service. I right click, go to new, then I say RESTful web service from patterns. It will create some packages, so I give the package name and finish it. Don't worry about the defaults, it will take care automatically. I just simply click OK. So it created a code for web service. Now if you see, there's a class generic resource, there's a method called getXML and a put method. So in REST session we learned that we get data, we put data back to the server stores the data. So for getting the data we call a get method. So when the browser request comes to our code, it knows that our code knows that it's a get request or push request. If it's a get request, it transfers the control to this method getXML because it is annotated with get. So I write a sample code, so like return hello. I'm assuming that I'm supposed to return an XML tag because it is already annotated that this method is supposed to return an XML. So this is what my response will look like. Now I directly try to test it. You might deploy it before, but testing will automatically deploy it for me. Okay, it asks, it's running on a browser and asking me for special permission. I'll just allow it. So this is the list of web service I have in my REST Demo 2 project. Click on one. The web service knows that there is a method. It's unlike SOAP, you have only predefined methods, get and put. So I do a get. I should see a response. That's the response I got. So how did it work? The get method sent a request to this URL where my just newly created project was hosted. So once the control comes to code of my project, because it was a get method, the control gets transferred to getXML and it returns a hello world and goes back to the browser, so that user. Similarly, one can write put method and write some file operations, and put method will save your data back to the server. So one more demo I want to show you, which deals with the database interaction. I have MySQL database installed here. List of database. The good thing about Netbeans is it automatically detects the server you're running in your computer and shows you. Any of you familiar with databases? Oracle, MySQL, or something like that? So it connects to the MySQL databases. Databases are essentially rows and columns. So I have a sample people database. I fire an SQL to know what's in their database already. Select start from people. People is a table name. Well, the three entries in the database, three names, their email, city, country. It's typical people database. How your college might have a student database, your student name, roll number, year, date of birth, your address, everything. Because sometimes if they want your details, they can go and check the database and find out. So what I'm trying to do is expose this particular database as a web service. I don't want to give you control over my database. I want to expose all the data in here as a web service so that you can write your program and consume it. You can build an application which searches students given a student name or roll number, or you want to find out who are the students who are from Hyderabad. So you search by city. But I don't want to give you control directly. I don't want to give you database control, because you might hack it, or this rows and columns doesn't make sense to you if you want to see the data on a browser. I go ahead, create a new project, again web project. I name it DB demo. Next, I choose Glassfish server, which will be responsible for running my web service as the application server. The first thing I do is create some entity classes from the database. These are Java classes whose member functions are mapped to the database columns. So I select the database. Okay, so it created a class called DB. So whatever columns were there in the DB are now a member function of this Java class. I directly go ahead and implement one new web service. So I'll go RESTful web service from entity classes. Add, finish. I'll let Netbeans take care of everything. Now it has created a bunch of classes which is essential for a web service. I go and test.